There's nowhere else like it on the planet. The Ross Ice Shelf is the largest ice shelf on the planet by area. It's around 800, 900 kilometers long, a wall of ice. We had the opportunity to come aboard the Italian icebreaker, the Laura Bassi. It was just an amazing opportunity to bring equipment and people to a critical part of the Earth system, trying to understand how the Ross Sea continental shelf area worked, primarily in terms of physical processes.
The Ross Sea is a very complicated environment and is very changing environment, and very likely is experiencing changes due to the climate change. So I started to work in the Ross Sea about 20 years ago, and following a strong tradition that Italy has in this kind of activity.
For decades really, Antarctica has been a place where the international community has come together to achieve big changes in our understanding. That's largely been possible on the continent itself. Now we're moving into an era where we need to extend that cooperation also into the ocean, and we need to be so ambitious with our science that international collaboration is the only way to make that really happen.
This voyage has been very important because we had on board a team of scientists from New Zealand. We had the opportunity to share information, we will share data, and especially I'm very happy because a new cooperation between young researchers has been established thanks to the funding coming from a philanthropic funds, of course, and I hope that this will open a new way for cooperation between Italy and New Zealand.
Any cuneiforms? Not that I've seen yet. Interesting. This is where all the magic happens. Here this is where we process our plankton samples once we bring them back on board. Zooplankton is really interesting to me because it's, I think, so diverse. There's so many different families and species under the term of zooplankton. And I think it's really interesting how they're so small but yet so important for the Antarctic food web and also actually global food web in the oceans. On this voyage we sample zooplankton with my bongo net, so these are two big nets with a really fine mesh that we just tow behind the ship, and then we drag out all the zooplankton from the surface. And then another method we have is the continuous plankton recorder, which is a little machine we also tow behind the ship, and it kind of records continuously the zooplankton on longer transits, for example.
The bigger picture is that knowing why zooplankton live where they live can help us to see what they might do as climate change progresses. Because when we can forecast what conditions will change, then we can also forecast what zooplankton will change in these areas. And because they are so important for the food webs in the Ross Sea ecosystem, you know, it will cascade up and affect the whales and the penguins and the seals and all the cute animals that we love. It's important to understand as much as we can about as it is now, so that we can see where it's going, we can project what impacts there will be for not only the animals that live there, but also for us as humans in this global world.
So mooring is an instrument that is mounted on the seafloor on big weights, and it's a cable going up and it's got instruments at different depths. And what's really cool with moorings is that you can put it in the ocean and pick it up a year or 2 years later. When we've got moorings in Antarctica, we're not able to do any ship-based measurements during the winter because it's covered with sea ice. So what we do is we put a mooring in the summertime. The mooring measures salinity, temperature, currents, and all sorts of ocean properties throughout the whole year. And then the next summer we come back, pick up the mooring and collect our data.
A really important piece of this is that the moorings that we've been working on in Terra Nova Bay in collaboration with the Korean Polar Research Institute, those moorings we've been doing for 10 years now. So that's a really exciting time series. So a decade of data, we can now start thinking about how the ocean is changing over long time periods, so like how climate change is affecting it. We're really pleased that we get the opportunity to keep doing that with our collaborators from Korea and now from Italy.
My work is on Paleo-climate, and I'm basically looking at what happened in the past in the Ross Sea to reconstruct the movement of the ice shelf. Sediment cores can tell you many things based on what you're looking in them, but in my case what I'm doing is looking at specifically the temperature of the most upper part of the ocean and the presence or not presence of sea ice.
So multicore is a way of sampling sediment from the seafloor, but it's pretty different from other coring systems in that it captures a very well-preserved surface water interface. So this system will be lowered fairly quickly to the lower seafloor, or about 20 meters above the seafloor, and then lowered fairly slow. As it enters the seafloor, the top and bottom pieces will snap shut on the little core barrels that you see there in orange, and that will preserve exactly what's there, the top of the sediment, the interface between the sediment and the water, and also the water column just above the seafloor. So as sediment is accumulating, it accumulates in chronological order with the most recent stuff on top, and the deeper you core down into the seafloor, the older the material you're recovering. So it's basically a storybook of layers of what's been deposited over time. So we can use these sedimentary archives to look back in time and see what the environments were like. Understanding the specific details of how the Ross ice sheet has responded to past warming periods and past climate change is really important for modeling what's going on now and predicting the response of this fragile ecosystem to modern climate change.
We're interested in this idea of our world is changing because of the climate, but what does that actually mean from a physics perspective, and how is that influencing all of the other things that's going on in our world that affect us? Here in the Ross Sea, we've had 3 autonomous underwater gliders. One of them has been mine from New Zealand and 2 are from our Italian colleagues, and we've sent them across the continental shelf. Already we're seeing things like how the chlorophyll levels, which indicates the bottom of the food chain, how that's changing as you go across the shelf. We're measuring how many particles are in the water and what their size is, and all these things are super important to be able to link together the biology, the chemistry, and the physics from what's happening. One of the big things that we've been doing on the ship is using the CTG to collect water that we then process, and that still is not something that a glider can do. Maybe in the future it might be able to do it, but for the time being, it's still really important that we have all these things working together, our gliders and the ship. One new thing that this collaboration has done, and it's a newer thing for gliders, is having multiple gliders work together to cover a bigger spatial area. Gliders have been around for a long time, but they've been used just by themselves for most of that period. And now there's new sensors that are being added. So one of the sensors that we brought with us that was on loan from Rutgers University is a prototype.
My hope is that this is not the last time we do this, right? And that we'll build a sort of an international collaboration with these folks and be down here again, because there's a lot to be learnt.
Working with this data and on these measurements and getting proper and good science out hopefully allows other people, that like policymakers, to make decisions based on good science. Especially in a world where there is so much misinformation. It's very important to to go down there and get the observations and measure, hey, this is actually the state of the ocean this year over, the past few years. And this is what we see that is happening. Like, these are the changes that we see. This is how it works. And then hopefully others can make good decisions on good science.
While we see on screens beautiful pictures of a beautiful place, that has to be thought about in context. The same way as when we see pictures of coral with all these beautiful fish, it looks nice, but then you start seeing what the coral should look like, and then you get worried. The first time you come, you're like, oh my goodness, this place is amazing, it's so beautiful. The third time you come, you're like, this might be the last time that it looks like this.
It'll be the decisions we make in the next decade and the processes that play out over the next 50 to 100 years that are really going to determine the future for Antarctica.